having my own little mental near meltdown. Ever have one of those? You know, one of those days where you're just like, I've about had it. And like, I've been watching my mind. I had a great class where I taught the Kriya for endurance and then detoxification. Now this is what kind of happens is you churn shit up. And you know, I do part of the Kriya with everyone, maybe not the full Kriya, but I also feel the effects as if I do it, even if I'm sitting on the podium and leading others through it. The thing is that over the past, well, I realized it really is since I went to serve on jury duty. I didn't realize it at the time, not right away, that throughout the course of my military career, I have encountered the biggest abusers of authority and exercising power, control, like always trying to keep me under their thumb. Because I guess my personality, I'm a go-getter, I'm a person of service, I show up and I give it my all. I don't have to be told what to do. I'm a natural born leader. If I see a need, I go to fill it. You don't have to say, hey Lana, you're just sitting over there, could I get you to do something? And a lot of cases that I experienced these types of personalities were in cases where I was already going above and beyond, already extending myself and seeking out ways to serve, to get educated, to learn the systems that I was working on. I would go and work with people because I was bored. So you didn't have to tell me what to do because I was seeking ways to support the position I was in and the people I was working with and around and for. Because to me, nobody should have to be told what to do. But see, that's what's interesting about the military services and the different branches. Because I could tell you by working with the other services, I was in the Air Force. The Army folks that I worked with, not all, but a lot of times I literally, when I would explain how to do something, I'd have to say, and because of the computer environment, I'd actually have to say and hit the enter key too. Like when you have to get to the point where you're training someone in the IT realm to actually have to tell them to hit the enter key, and that's their career field as well, meaning that's supposed to be their specialty. I don't know if that's because of the fear factor and the fear of authority or what. With the Marines, when I would teach them on the systems that we were working with, because I actually taught classes on how to work on these different systems too. The Marines were powerful, and I really appreciated working with them because they wouldn't just take my word for it. They would ask for more reference. They would go that extra step and research it on top of, not that they didn't listen and take me as an authority or a professional in the department that we were working in, but they wanted to go that much deeper to learn more. The nuances, the behind the scenes, like if something were to come up. And I really appreciated that. I didn't see that as a questioning of my authority or my power or my ability. I actually admired that. And to me, that inspired me more to be better at what I did. Now with the Navy, kind of a push and pull. Intelligent, but then also at the same time, like cocky, like arrogant. And a mouth like a mofo, if you know what I mean. I don't know how many military, Navy folks that I worked with, that they didn't care what they said in the language they used. They didn't care who their audience was. And in fact, they had more of that arrogance, like, if you don't like it, that's tough. I'm just a sailor and that's how it is. It's like, wait a minute here. The way you do everything is the way you do anything. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. So if you are not even the slightest considerate of your environment and the people you're working with, you have no concern. It's very narcissistic, thinking that it's your way and everybody should just accept it. Whereas the Army, a lot of the Army folks, yeah, I've heard them cuss, but a lot of times in the case of the Army, they would be more selective in their terminology and the language they use because they knew that they could also get in trouble and held accountable for the language they used. So what has been stirring up for me? Number one, let me step back a second. Last night I was on Clubhouse and I was kind of listening in on some different groups and I wanted to engage, but there was not opportunity. And a lot of what I was hearing was people's egos wanting to be right, wanting to be heard. Because as I was observing in the different conversations that were going on, people were attacking each other's credentials, their character, their behavior, instead of actually staying on topic. And I know these people have moderators, but the moderators were just as bad in these groups that I was listening to. I ended up moving to another group because I was kind of like, ugh, I can't, this is ugly. It was so ugly. It was finger pointing. It was, you do this all the time, and da-da-da-da-da, and show what's your supporting evidence, and where's your facts, and I was like, wow. And I wanted to share my perspective on what I was hearing, but not once was I given an opportunity. And because of the way that they were all behaving like unruly children who were all picking a fight, I realized that the energies, this is the energy that's in the collective right now. And I hadn't just seen it last night. What is stirring up for all of us is the pressure that's been on us all these years, for most of our lives. The idea that we've been oppressed, suppressed, told to be quiet, follow along, get along, do what you're told, sit down, shut up, don't say a word. I'm speaking, listen to me. And there gets to a point when you've been under pressure for so long where you're like, fuck you. I'm done. I want to be heard. And everybody's talking over each other. So you go from one extreme to a whole other extreme of where you're not just trying to exercise your voice, but your arrogance in trying to express it is coming from that emotional, irrational dregs of your being deep down into your sacral, your survival chakras. The grounding, the rooting needs to be balanced. If you're emotional and you're basically at the whim of your emotions, if you are acting out of your emotions, then you're coming from an irrational space because the emotions are controlling you, not you controlling your emotions. You need to learn to emotionally regulate, to be able to take and harness, go, oh, shoo, something's coming up. Don't take it out on someone, go within and sit and steep in it. Like really steep in your shit. Because guess what? Nobody else can do that for you. And you got to be willing to go through your own muck. Sit and steep in your own junk. Because if you don't, you're going to projectile vomit on people. You're going to make words. You're going to create arguments. You're going to create more suffering and struggle in your own life and the people around you. Whereas if you go within and you sit with it, no matter how uncomfortable it is, because I'll tell you right now, today was very uncomfortable for me. I was like, literally like, ugh, I don't like feeling this shit. Like, this is not normal for me. Like, I had anxiety stirring. Like, I'm like going, what the hell is this? And I got with it. And I'm like, I know what it is. It's because I'm back here again. Because I'm actually, today was down to the last wire. I'm supposed to show up for jury duty tomorrow. Because of the judge who proceeded to abuse his power and exercise control over me and get off on it the last time I was summoned for jury duty, and I had to leave early because they didn't finish the selection. And by the way, that judge wasn't prepared for the whole scenario anyway, because he proceeded to say, after his little charade with me, he proceeded to end up realizing, oh wow, I forgot to order a clerk to do the notes. Like, really? That's real professional there, judge. Let's bring it back. All right. So I was really in my shit today. And I realized, wow, it's not just me, because when I'm feeling it this strongly, I realize this is what's been conjuring up. That you see in the world stage right now, people are done. They are done with the oppression. They are done being told what to do. Nobody likes to be told what to do by anybody else. I don't know anybody who does. Truly, when you stop and think about it, you look in the mirror and say, I really like it when other people tell me what to do. With the exception of being, in the BDSM world, where that's just a fetish and it's a temporary thing. You don't like it all the time. Just saying. Behind the scenes, you might have your stuff, but the entire course of your life should not be dictated. Listen to that one again. Do you like to be dictated on? I sure as hell don't, because dicks don't do shit for me. I'm just gonna say, if you don't show up with your confidence, confidare, with your trust, a dick ain't doing shit for me. You better have that cock ready. That's how I see it. Because a cock will cockle-doodle-doo, roost from the mountaintops, and he will warn you because he knows what's up. Whereas a dick, he's just faking it. That's a beta. He's just faking that power. He's just trying to show you his feathers and impress you with something that has no substance. This is life and what is playing out in the word today. And I want you to stop and think about the word authority. Authority is not about who has power over you outside of you. It is about you being the author of your own life. Authority. Author. Itty. Break words down and you'll learn more about it. Who is the authority of your life? That needs to be you. You need to be the author. You need to be the star of your own life, not the extra being dictated over. So this is my attitude today. I am stepping back into that power because I was at a point where I'm like going, okay, I got to sit with this. And I was squirming. I really wasn't sitting. I was standing. And I'm like, I got to deal with this hot mess. Because life is going to throw you some curveballs. It's going to test you. Hey, how are you going to handle this one? How are you going to react, respond? How are you going to show up? How are you going to play into this game? Are you going to learn to dance? Are you going to be able to show up with grace and not a grudge? Are you going to be able to overcome, to conquer with your heart of courage, to recognize your true power in the moment? Because when you get caught off guard, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to have feelings. You're going to have emotions stir up. And being human, the first feeling is a freebie. In addition, the gut, and I want you to know, the gut is the second brain. So even if you're eating crappy food and your gut biome is off, that's affecting your mood too. So if you get caught off guard, and not only are your emotions stirring, but there could be other things going on down in there that are permeating, penetrating, that aren't your normal way of being. And when your gut biome was off, your mental stability and ability to respond, your nervous system, your whole beingness is not able to respond in the right way, okay? So when the feelings come up, you have to really be like, okay, take a deep breath, count to 10. Feel into it. Like, is this true for me? Is this my truth? Because a lot of things are going to be thrown at you that aren't your truth. They're there to shake you up and wake you up. And if you allow them, they can break you up. But the truth of the matter is, even a breakdown is a breakthrough leading to the breakthrough. So when you are in that moment, you have to really go, okay, what are you saying? What's really going on here? Oh, okay. So for me, it was, remember back when you were stationed in Korea and you had that one supervisor of an asshole who was a smoker and I wasn't one to take a smoke break because I didn't smoke? So my thing was, well, if they get smoke breaks, I like to take breaks too. I'm going to go and find something good to do. I'm going to go find ways to be of service because that's how I roll my entire military career, my entire life. If I'm bored, once again, like I said earlier, if I'm bored, I need to be doing something. I'm a go-getter. Don't let me sit in a chair twiddling my thumbs because I will go stir crazy. If I am there to do a job, I'm there to do something productive. So when I took my breaks, I would go to the other offices and ask if anybody needed help. And for some reason, this particular the supervisor, I think his name was Fitzgerald. I think he was either a staff or a tech sergeant. I think he was a tech, probably a new tech. He was tall, he was lanky, had dark hair, kind of receding. And one day, I don't know what came over this guy. He was an asshole to me. I didn't know what he had against me because I didn't do anything. I just had a bubbly personality. I was young. I was 20 years old at the time, and I was working in the switchboard operations. So what is that? Picking up the phone, answering the phone, connecting people, making phone calls, watching over the commander's phone kind of deal. And for whatever reason, he singled me out. Didn't do it to anybody else, but he had it for me. He had it hard for me. He wanted to dictate over me. Fake abuses of power. The unfortunate thing is when you've witnessed this in these environments, you realize these guys would never get away with this in the real world. Nobody would let them would tolerate this bullshit. Nobody would put up with this. And I'm like, oh my God, that fucker. He's back. And that's how the judge acted with me. He singled me out. And so I realized, holy crap, I'm reliving this one. And there was a time I went upstairs because I used to go up into the other office where they needed somebody, and I was actually trying to get out of the switchboard because I didn't want to work in that environment. I wanted something more productive, something that was actually going to utilize my skills, gifts, and talents and abilities. So I was able to get up into what was considered the building custodian's office. It was working in a different environment. And I went up there to check on some guys, and I used to go up to the admin office too, and I'd see if they needed anything. Sometimes I'd go pick up paperwork that needed to be passed between offices. And I ran into that supervisor in the hallway, and I needed more trouble tickets. So he's like, I saw him, and I was a wise ass. I admit it. I was like, just getting some trouble tickets. And I didn't say it in a nasty way. I just, you know what? He wants me to always tell him where I'm going. So I just said, just going to get some trouble tickets. And he turned around and said, 𝒉𝒂𝒂💂. And I'm like, yes. Do you have a problem? Why would I have a problem with somebody who singled me up? You think he knew he was wrong? Because to even imply that by what he just said, he was stating he knew he was being an asshole. You know, people reveal themselves. They just don't pay attention. They're so unconscious of their own bullshit. It's basically spewing out. So I turned around and said, no, you wanted me to tell you whenever I went somewhere, and I'm just telling you. Because he started to get cocky with me again and have a conversation. I'm like, you requested whenever I'm going somewhere, and that's what I'm doing. I'm telling you. And I went and got my trouble tickets. But this is the problem. And this is what I encountered with the judge. When I went to the government building to report for jury duty, I was told that the judge may require me to wear a face mask, a covering in the actual courtroom, which made no sense to me because I'm here to serve. I'm not here to be on trial. And I said, okay. So, well, I didn't expect any type of altercation, be straight up, because I cannot wear something across it. To me, first off, I teach breath work. Number two, I get anxious. I don't even have claustrophobia, and that shit brings up PTSD for me. I'm not going to go into the struggles and like people stop. You got to be more compassionate, because if you think this is what proves you can trust someone, stop and think about all the people who have been abused, held down held down by their throat or with something across their face. And you tell me that that's okay, because the way that they've played this game to get an exemption or a card, even though it's not a law, to prove yourself worthy of not having to wear something across your face, and then to have the animosity of people, like they created this whole divide against each other to this, you're not doing what I'm doing, self-righteous mentality. Like, don't project your shit onto other people. You don't want to be wearing it, but you're trying to play police and force others to wear it too. So I go in the courtroom, and the judge is like, is there any reason why anybody would have any problems? And I wanted to have a conversation. And as I started to have the conversation, he started to get arrogant with me. That it was kind of like it's his courtroom, and he was being very much like, I say. And I said, I'm sorry, this is not lawful. And he was like, is it not? I'm like, it's a mandate, it's not a law. And he was trying to push, and I don't remember all the details of the conversation. I can just say I felt very uncomfortable. I felt like I was being bullied, that I wasn't prepared for an altercation, that he kept speaking over me. And then I do admit I kind of almost, I couldn't get my word in, and I was flustered because then I asked him, what if I don't wear one? And he couldn't answer me directly. See, this is when you know to call a bluff and call someone out on the bullshit. At the time, I wasn't thinking straight because I was totally caught off guard. And I didn't realize this was bringing up that trigger. At the time, I had no idea that it was bringing up that old memory. It wasn't until later that I sat with it and went, oh my God, I didn't even think about that, because it got worse. So as I proceeded to try to get him to admit and give me a direct answer, he would not. He said, he implied with a bully tactic, well, I can't be certain to explain that you may be held or blah, blah, blah. It was worded in such a way, and it was in the legalese that I don't know, that I was like, that's not an answer. And somebody who's supposedly a judge wants to be clear, who can't give you a direct answer, I should have called him out on the bluff. I should have been like, that I'm still not wearing it. But because I was so flustered and I just wanted to get out of that courtroom at the moment, I said, well, how about my scarf across my face? And then he put a smirk on his face, and that's when I realized that this was a power trip. Because the look on his face was like, I won. I convinced you to bow down to me. See, mandate, the only way it becomes mandatory is if you submit and oblige it by complying. Otherwise, there is nothing legal about it except for your willingness to go along. Doesn't make it right. But people comply out of fear. And that's what the problem is. He sat there and he kind of gave a pause. One of the things I did learn is that you always keep the question, keep the control of the conversation. And he proceeded to say, well, I think I can accommodate that. There we go with that arrogant response. And as I started to walk out, he turns around and pulls another fast one. And he says, I want you to make sure you don't take that off your face anywhere in this building. I don't want to see you without a cover on your face anywhere in the hallways, in the bathroom. And at that point, I knew this motherfucker is abusing and getting off on singling me out because I didn't want to go along. And even the officers, bailiffs, the ones that are standing there, you know, with their uniforms and all, when I turned around, even they stopped like, what the hell did we just witness? Because they spoke up for me. At least in that moment they did. I said, sir, she's not required to wear it in the hallways, just in your courtroom, because of what he had just dictated. Dictating, dick swinging around, trying to keep control. I want you to keep these things in mind, because if you ain't paying attention to the languaging, you're missing out on the whole insult to injury, because the language and the words that they use are mocking us. Dictators. They are swinging it, marking their territory, and trying to get you to do whatever they want you to submit to their will and their abuse of power. And they're not authorities over you unless you give them the power to author over you. You should take your authority and reclaim your personal power because you are the author of your life. This courtroom, as I went in and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can't fucking sit here. I almost got up and walked out. I almost got up and walked out because I was losing it in my mind. And it was mostly because I was letting my mind go crazy. Because he wasn't prepared. He had to order a court reporter, so the recorder, so they could take the notes down. And I thought that was hilarious because it just showed that he wasn't professional with me. And then to top it off, he just made himself look even more discredited by the fact that he wasn't prepared. Come lunchtime, we should have been selected. But he did not. And we were all like willing to sit through the next 15, 20 minutes. We were willing to go over lunch to be able to get it done then. But no, that motherfucker, he's like, we're going to take a lunch break and then come back. And then I turned around and said, you know what? I had a mental health appointment with the VA. And I didn't anticipate being there longer, and I forgot about the appointment. I didn't expect it to be that long. So I had to speak up and say, I can't be here because I got an appointment. And he tried to blame, shame, and play that guilt trip on me. I said, listen, I said, this is a mental health appointment. You don't understand. I'm a veteran, and it's hard enough to get VA services and appointments as it is. I can't reschedule this. I didn't anticipate being here for this long and all this mess. And he was an asshole again, because you know what he says to me? I want you to make sure you go downstairs and you reschedule. I was so discombobulated and like pissed off at this whole scenario for him trying to play this little power dynamic was really wild. And I know those guys all witnessed it. Like, what the fuck did we just witness? So I went downstairs and I explained what happened. And I was stressed out because I'm like, I didn't want to come back. I did not want to come back. And I was like, I'll figure this out, whatever. And I left before I even got my check. Fortunately, that got mailed to me. But at that point, I'm like, $10 for jury duty? Come on. I wasn't worth $10 of my time. I certainly feel like I should have been paid a whole lot more for that bullshit and that running through the circus and having to deal with somebody so abusing power. I mean, first off, I realized I should have filed a complaint. And you know why? Because a judge who actually demonstrated their behavior like that should not be up on that position. He should not be allowed to preside over a court when he can't even be neutral with an individual. What he demonstrated to me was he couldn't be a proper authority for anybody. That he was abusing his power, that I wasn't the one on trial, but he treated me like such. I was there to serve on a jury, and he wasn't upholding my rights. He was infringing and imposing himself upon my rights. That's what was really going down. Whether anybody agrees or disagrees, it was uncalled for, and that's an example of toxicity in our system, the oppression of our legalese and our legal system. Like, I mean, the truth of the matter is, and a lot of people don't know this, did you know that a judge and a lawyer, because they belong to the bar does not belong in the United States. It's not a United States entity. Apparently, because they are connected to the bar, they're supposed to report and they're supposed to ask for permission to practice in the United Continental States and specifically in your state. So check into that one. And then on top of that, the question can always be asked, are you representing the supreme law, the law of the land, or are you representing maritime law, the law of the sea? See, when you see the word summons, it's to summon the dead. And your birth certificate is your straw man. It is to show the dead entity and all the caps. We belong to the Vatican. Like, that's some crazy shit. Can't get into all that. There's just way too much when you go down that. And it's a true statement. You go get yourself a Black Laws dictionary. Start learning the legal terminology. We need to be having education classes like this, because what we've been taught is to keep us in the dark. Now, speed up to today, because for the past week and a half, I've been trying to get some way to get excused from it, because I'm not dealing with this judge again. Although the other day I got to a point where, like, if I have to, I'll go in and I will call him out on his bullshit this time. But I was able to finally get through. I spoke to my mental health counselor last week. They can't technically write a letter that says unfit for trial or jury duty and all that. They can't do that because they're just not qualified. And so there's another example of what last week I'm like, fuck, the fear of authority has people so paralyzed. They're unable to assist or support. Like in the whole veteran services, I'm telling her the situation. I told her what happened. I said, this is what's coming up for me. I'm re-experiencing all that trauma. And I just used Korea as an example, but there are plenty of other examples in my career where people would literally try to put their thumb on me and